Okay, it is now 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and start our code revisions, appeals, and negotiations. Can I have the roll call, please, Madam Clerk? Or, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. So we're starting at exactly 6. Roll call.
Alderman Hayes.
Present.
Alderman Guzman.
Present.
Alderman Turner.
Present.
Alderman Bolton.
Present.
Mayor Taylor.
Present. There being no old business, on to new business. Item A, can I have a first and a second to the motion?
I so move.
Alderman Florian is the first,
I'll
second.
second it.
Oh, I'm sorry, who was the first?
Alderman Bolton.
Okay, I'm sorry. Alderman Bolton, I'm sorry. It's hard to tell where it comes from. Alderman Bolton was the first, the second.
I'll second.
Alderman Guzman, thank you. At least I didn't get you two confused. That would have been really embarrassing, right?
Oh my God.
Item A, an ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances concerning the mobile food vendor regulations. Any questions to the motion?
I do, Mayor.
Okay, Alderman Guzman?
Okay, so I was just speaking to the Corporation Council, and I'd like to amend this to add in another stipulation. Okay, so when I was driving around, the problem is this. Okay, so you have a parking area, which is a flat paved surface. You have an area with, like, let's say 20 spots. And then the food truck comes in there. Now they're going to take up like 5 to 8 spots. Okay? So I have no problem people coming in and out. But what happens when now the entire area is full and then people start parking in city streets where there is no parking? I believe that the food truck should give up that parking spot to move those cars into their parking lot. If not, there goes a citation for illegal parking.
Can I ask a question in response to that? So, I mean, by virtue of the license, we're giving them the right to park in the spot, right? So to tell them that they then have to, and operate and do other things. But it seems like if we allow them to park in certain designated areas and then the parking lot's full and we tell them we have to move, we seem to be violating our end of the bargain.
So what do you do with now that they're blocking the streets off and now you got now only a one-way street for part of the way? And then what happens to the accident that occurs to that when one person doesn't want to stop and then just goes forward with the other way? Because you don't have a flagger there moving cars around. Nobody's directing traffic. So they're going 1, 1, 1, 1. But how about somebody doesn't want to do 1, 1, 1? How about if they want to do 5, 1?
I think, if I'm understanding it, it just seems like the rules of the road would apply in those circumstances, and then it would be left up to code enforcement or the police's decision. So here's my concern. I think you raise a real issue, but if we try to legislate around every single problem that we could potentially have, we find ourselves creating more confusion. I'm sympathetic with what you're saying. I think it is a problem, but if we try to craft language around that, we're going to find ourselves creating unintended loopholes or unintended consequences generally. So maybe it's just something we can raise with police or code enforcement or the vendors themselves. Or if you see it, just walk up to the truck and say, hey man, you got to change your configuration.
Mayor, could I make one comment which may assist? I don't want to contest what anybody's saying here. One of the parts of this amendment is that it allows food trucks on private property only when the owner of the private property is basically paying for all of the food, using it as a catering. So it can there was a big discussion about whether private businesses could have this come on and basically turn into a mobile restaurant that could compete with other brick and mortar. The language that changes, and you all should have a copy in front of you, basically says that private properties with the written permission of the property owner 7 days a week between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m., but only for service of food paid for entirely by the owner of the property in advance for the benefit of employees or guests upon the property. No retail sale of food to customers will be permitted by mobile food vendors on private property. So what we're really trying to do is if you're selling you're going to be in the areas that we've designated. Now, Alderman Guzman, you had raised a point that a food truck could be in a public parks parking lot, and I think that was what you were concerned with, that was a specific exception that you had concern with.
Yes, it actually happened on a Park District property, and it happened on the Port District property also.
So, if I may, I don't understand what the problem is with someone doing business. And they apply to the city for a license to do business and permission slip to do business on city property. That's legitimate, right? But then they want to go on private property, and now you want to tell them that that's not permissible. You can't do business on private property. And what's the rationale behind that?
No. I want people to do business. That's not the issue. That's not the problem. I'm 100% business. But the problem is this. So it happened in my ward. So they had like a little baseball game, okay? So now everything filled up. All the parking spaces filled up. And then now the people were parking on a street that there's no parking.
So what would happen if there was no food truck, but all the parking spots filled up? Just people coming to see the game, they live in the neighborhood, but suddenly all the parking spots are filled up. What would happen then? People would go find a parking space somewhere else, right?
You are totally correct, Alderman Turner.
I mean, we can't regulate every iota of life and business, and I think the stipulation that a business owner can't do business on a private property, it just doesn't. I don't even know if that's constitutional, but I'm not here to argue with the Constitution. I'm just saying, to me, it's wrong that we try to inflict these burdensome regulations that restrict business, and it seems like we do it at every opportunity. I think we should let people do business. It's a free market, and let the competition rule. Right?
I agree. We are a country of doing business, and that is what we need to do. And I guess I could see it your way. I mean, if they decided to park in the street and they get a ticket or they get into an accident, I guess it's their fault.
I think probably Alderman Hayes said it best, is we can't legislate everything. We're just trying to make the city run as smooth as we can. And you will never regulate and there will be some outside of that norm, but all we can do is the best we can.
You're totally correct, Mayor. So I'm going to pull that, and we could go forward.
Any other questions to the motion? Roll call, please. Man, Stu.
So I'm just going to note that, Alderman Guzman, you had proposed an amendment. I don't know if it got a second, so I think
It really doesn't matter because I'm going to pull it. I pulled it anyway.
okay,
so.
great. All right. Okay. So this is to recommend the ordinance as presented to the committee. Alderman Hayes?
Which, sir, for clarification, so that does include the restriction on sales on private property?
Yeah, I think there should be a copy. Do we put copies in front?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a copy of the ordinance, and it's shown in black line on the last 2 pages of the changes that are being proposed. If the committee would like me to summarize the changes, I'm happy to do so.
You can go ahead, Stu. I did read it online, but I just want to make sure, per this discussion, that what we're going to be voting on.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Alderman Hayes?
Aye.
Alderman Guzman?
Aye.
Alderman Turner?
No, for the reasons I stated.
Okay. Alderman Bolton?
Aye.
Mayor Taylor?
Aye.
Motion to recommend passes.
Item B, can I have a first and a second?
First.
Alderman Hayes, a second.
I'll second.
Alderman Bolton, an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Waukegan Code of Ordinances regarding unlimited drink specials. Any questions to the motion?
Yeah, what's the rationale behind this? What's the driver to make this ordinance?
It's because we've had people who are coming up with more and more ways of bringing business in that is unlimited drinking for X amount of dollars, and that's a problem, because that is actually promoting drunk driving.
But isn't there a law against I forget the term,
A state law?
the state law,
It's got some holes in it.
something
and that's-
about you can't overserve people, a dram shop or something, whatever they call it, it's a dram law.
Yes.
That you can't overserve, so the bartender and or the business owner would be liable if there was something that occurred and they go through promissories that they're not gonna do it and all that stuff, so.
But this is a little bit different. This is the fact that this is just promoting unlimited amounts of drinking by, it's a special event, really, which is not what they've been doing. And so there's been no notification, and it's been spilling out into the streets. Anybody, Stu, do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm happy to expand on this a little bit more. The State Liquor Control Act does provide a prohibition on all you can drink. It does have a number of exceptions, which can make it a little bit hard to enforce. To have a local law that mirrors the state law, but kind of removes some of those exceptions and clearly states that all you can drink specials are not permitted in the city it's not unusual. It is a fully legal provision to have in a code.
So incident or series of incidents or something that drove us to this? I mean, how did this come up? Why didn't we do this last year, or why now?
Because everybody's becoming more and more wanting to stretch that line a little bit farther. So we're closing the loophole now before it gets out of control.
I call for the vote.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Hayes,
Aye.
Alderman Guzman,
I guess so. Aye.
that was an aye. Okay. Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Mayor Taylor.
Aye.
Recommendation to approve will be passed on to the City Council.
Okay. Item C, can I have a first and a second?
First.
I second.
Alderman Hayes, and second is Alderman Bolton. An ordinance amending Section 2-100 of the Code of Ordinances, removing the requirement for annual adoption of a salary ordinance. Any questions to the motion?
I do.
Okay, Alderman Guzman.
Okay, first I was agreeable to this, but then I was like, if now I'm not agreeable to this, because then how about if salary changes and then we have to go through this whole thing again of going through committees and then going through all the whole thing? I think we should just stick what we have and not go to this and just review the salaries.
I'm going to have corporate counsel address this, how they do it in other communities, because I think we're the only ones that have this, that it puts us as an outlier. I mean, other communities don't have all these requirements. Corporate counsel?
Of the communities that our firm works with, which is, I believe, over 20 as general counsel, and I'm not aware of any other community that specifically fixes each of their ordinances and each of their salaries in a separate ordinance. The budget and the appropriation ordinance provide the budget for headcount. Headcount is set in the budget, and then also the salaries of all municipal employees is public data that is published online. When you're voting to increase someone's salary who makes over a certain amount of money, I believe it's $175,000 or $75,000, you actually have to post that in advance. So as a matter of public transparency, the state law requires full disclosure of all these things. But a separate ordinance that sets each individual salary I've never seen that except here.
Well, here's the problem where I have it. Okay, so we went through the budget, the salary ordinance and everything. We removed the director of animal control, but then the money still stays there. Just like, again, like last year, we removed a position, and then the money still stayed there. And then even though an alderman said, well, we should move the money. And then it was recommended by, I think it was Corporation Council, if I'm not incorrectly, that we should not be moving money from one department to the next. So this is where I have the issue at, the money part. It's all about the money.
I have a question. Alderman Turner, were you first? I'm sorry. No, okay. So I think, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, Council, but it seems like what we're doing really is just eliminating a step, because everything that's in the salary ordinance is already going to be in the budget, and we vote on the budget. So we are effectively removing an additional level of bureaucracy that you talked about before, perhaps, and having to debate the salary ordinance as a separate item. And everything's just being lumped into the budget, which is really where it is anyway. So all the information that's in the salary ordinance is in the budget, and we would just debate it when voting on the budget as opposed to doing it separately as a salary ordinance. So your concerns are all valid, and they still exist, and they should be raised at the time that we vote on the budget, just not during the salary ordinance. So I think in effect, we're just making our job easier.
Then what do you call that, we discussed the salary ordinance for an animal control director, and we voted to remove it. Now a couple like less than a month later, now it's back? If we already voted, and then, what is the first thing they say? The money is there. Why are you guys having any issues with this? And then we voted on, the agreement was to hire another employee instead of the director, and it's still not being hired, so they can keep the money there for the director of animal control. So, no.
Sure, but that same problem, or the gripe that you have can be levied when we're voting on the budget itself. It's not the salary ordinance or the budget. It's the problem's going to exist either way. So why not just eliminate an unnecessary step, and we can address it all during the budget? It doesn't. There's different pots of money. We all understand. The law allows us to hire an individual or not hire an individual, whether the money's there or not. Or if the money's not there, you can't do it. But it's the ordinance that controls. The ordinance is now going to be lumped in with the budget, and it seems to me that we're just collapsing the two into one exercise. So trying to create some efficiency. So I think your concern is going to exist either way. So why not just make it one step?
It saves actually discussing personnel on the floor, that it's actually in the budget and it's all there. Chief of Staff?
Yes, and I'm sorry if I didn't explain that properly last time. You approved the budget, the salary ordinance was after the fact. So when you made any amendments and changes to the salary ordinance, you already passed the budget. So when you ask why was the funding still in there, that's the reason why. And that funding can be utilized in their budget, not for personnel. The position hasn't been filled yet because, like some other positions, they're trying to make sure that they're organized because this was all new to them and they just got a new building. So then they can go through the process of recruiting for the position that they're approved for. The only reason this comes up is because others have asked a question about that position, but we're still proceeding on with what we have in front of us, which was approved. We haven't changed from that, but a new building plus new changes, they're trying to get that in before they recruit.
So basically, what I'm listening that I should amend the budget and state that any position that's eliminated from any department, the money should be removed and go into the general fund?
And that's what you have discussions about when we give you the budget months in advance. That's when those discussions happen.
Well, we did have the discussion, and then the agreement was to not have the animal control director and only to hire an animal control employee. But then the subject has already come to my ears like 2 or 3 times. And it's even been, I think it was first and second on a committee. So it will be coming up on a future agenda.
I can help with
Go
that.
ahead.
When you did change the head count, you changed it from one position to another position, the funding will translate to that person. So when you say it's still in the budget, the position that you did approve still has to be funded. There was no position in the budget. So when you change the salary ordinance to a different head count, all we're doing is taking that funding and transferring it to the position that you did approve. So you wouldn't be removing it anyways, all right? It
But-
still has to stay in the budget
But here's
for
my,
that other person.
here's my issue. Okay, so if we gave you a 5 count, okay, 5 animal control people, okay? So that's still a 5 count. You can have a director, 2 supervisors, 2 employees. That's still a 5 count. So that makes it legal under the budget because you're still doing 5 employees.
There's only 4 employees in animal
I'm
control.
just giving an
example.
example.
Yeah.
I do.
So it still
correct, but
comes 5 people. So if you pass a budget for that department, let's say $100,000, and you can squeeze in 5 people and one of them make them a director, you're still spending the $100,000. Even though we decided as a council to remove the director, you can still hire and bring back the director because you still have the money in there. You still have the $100,000 that you got for those 5 people to spend on.
I'm sorry, I have to disagree. We cannot. The salary ordinance tells you the titles. So we can only have those titles. That's the reason why we changed it for you, to be transparent. You can only have the titles that are in there, and when you removed it, no matter how much funding we have, we can't apply that head count.
So
As
if if we remove the salary ordinance, then we lose that control, right?
Correct.
Going to be in the budget, as was stated by Corporation Counsel and the mayor.
Right.
When you pass the budget, that's when you'll be going through what we went through before, but you're only doing 1 step instead of 2 steps.
Which is what all the other communities are doing.
So just for clarity, what you're saying is that we can do a line item adjustment in the budget. We don't want that position. We don't approve. We amend the budget to remove that position.
When it comes that time and to do the budget, that's when that discussion happens.
Is that when we can remove that line?
That's
item?
when, yep, that's when you make the decision on all the positions, because that's when we'll present it to you.
And you'll be presented those when we first present the budget, so you'll have lots of time to talk about that.
And again, this was something that was brought up during that salary ordinance heavy lift, and this is when Attorney, again, Kelly did mention it to you, that this is a step that you normally would not have, but we could not do it at that time because we were trying to get the salary ordinance completed appropriately.
Yeah.
Actually, I was the one who brought it up.
Yep.
I'm the one who talked to her. I'm the one who pushed this. And then I thought about it. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Because I didn't understand why we discussed something in July, it passed, and then 6 months later, then here we go for a vote again. That's where I have the problem.
And I think that, the biggest concern that from a legal from a legal perspective and from an HR perspective that we have is that a budget is approved. It includes the biggest cost to the city of its whole budget is, aside from pensions and everything, it's staff. I mean, you're paying for people. And so when you have a budget, you have a head count, then voting again separately on a salary ordinance is, it leaves the departments really up in limbo. So a lot of this does come from working early on the budget with the departments, looking at what their head count is, look at what they're allocating to these positions.
We've gotten to do the budget early and earlier. There used to be a time where we were past May 1st and we didn't always have budgets. You guys are starting to see your budgets in February.
Oh,
So,
I'm not saying that.
yeah, and
any-
that's when we want to debate that, rather than passing something and then re-debating all this. It does make it very hard for department heads. It does make it hard for employees not knowing, okay, you voted this, but now you could change this in the salary ordinance, and now we've got an inconsistency. So that's where it came in.
So when I was helping out doing the salary ordinance, we did some ranges, okay, where everybody should be at. I'm okay with that, not a problem, okay? Where I had the problem at is like, okay, so I'll bring it up again, the animal control director, okay? It was voted to eliminate the position, but then now it's coming up again. Do you see my problem? Because the money is still there. The money is still budgeted for.
Well, the money is still there because it'll be for that other position. And so you still have to have the money there.
No, because the position would be at, what, 90,000, or let's say $100,000, but the employee we picked out is going to be for 60,000. So where do you fill in the gap of the 40,000, the money that's in the budget for that department?
But the other part of that is that department is still forming. So you want to have a little bit of extra in there because they've never had their own budget. So we need to make sure that we're covering some of that because they don't know what their budget has been. And they are just newly forming. It's like when we formed the lakefront coordinator, they didn't have a budget. We never had a lakefront coordinator. We've never had animal control on their own before. So that's where that is, so that we can get everything. Again, we don't know exactly when that new person is going to be coming on. We're trying to get animal control open before we address that. There's a lot of things that are all happening in animal control because it's a new department. Yeah. Any other questions to the motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Guzman.
No.
Alderman Turner.
No.
Alderman Bolton.
Yeah, sorry. Alderman Bolton.
Aye.
Mayor Taylor.
Aye.
Motion to recommend to the full council later tonight.
Okay. Are there any public comment? Okay.
Motion to adjourn. Excuse me, sir, I didn't see you step up.
Good evening, council.
Hold on, Mr. Edwards. Let me just sit. Oh, you got the timer? Sorry.
Good evening, council. I'm glad you mentioned about that. This is something that you guys are supposed to do. This is why you guys are supposed to go talk to these department heads and things like that. Because what the mayor just explained to you, even I know better than that. You asked the question, where's that $40,000 going to go? That was never answered. We knew going in and approving this budget that this department was new and it didn't have a budget. And so at that point, that's when you want to allocate some extra because, again, you don't know what that budget is. So when you guys passed that budget, you allowed them an opportunity to do what they want to do with that money because it's not going to go over that budget. But I want to talk about these mobile food vendors. We did it, y'all. We didn't just open up the city to look like any and everything. Have anybody rolled down Glen Floor on the weekend? It's stuffed animals everywhere, all down Lewis and all around. See, this is what you do when you just let people sell whatever they want to sell. I said to y'all, before y'all pass these mobile vendor things, think about what you're going to do to these local restaurants. Think about the message that you send it to everybody else. And so tonight I'm going to ask this council what y'all need to do is these businesses that have this parking space that allowing other people to come on to sell things, they should have to pay for that. It should be something. Somebody should be benefiting something because that's how they're getting away. And I'm going to say it publicly because it don't be said. When I see people that look like me do it, it's always a problem. And that's just, it got to be said because that's a conversation. We don't get those same privileges. And so again, this city needs to get some control. Because if we want business to come here, we want people to move here, Waukegan needs to look beautiful. That do not look beautiful. It looked like a swap shop, stuff everywhere. It was embarrassing, and I've been here 46 years, and I ain't never seen nothing like that. So while we spending time talking about things, let's talk about those things. Thank you.
Those are things that we are addressing because they've all come up with all this. Everybody's trying a new entrepreneur thing, and that's been it. We have done citations this last weekend. We will continue. There's more and more stuff. That's why we're reeling in on the liquor because everybody is taking that next step. And it's got to stop because it's not fair to the people who have businesses in our city. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Alderman Turner, second.
Second.
All those in favor? That was Alderman Hairston.
Aye.
Thank you.